Welcome to the Planning for Life podcast with certified financial planner professional Russell Jacobs and financial life advisor Carl Coolidge. Carl and Russell will share creative strategies and ideas for overcoming challenges in your personal and financial life. Inevitably, life happens, and we will empower you to reach your destination. Thanks for joining us. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to another podcast. Today, Russell is going to talk about something that's difficult. He's going to talk about something that really does need to be talked about. And I'm just going to kind of sit back and add as we need. But Russell's going to share some stories with us. So just kind of sit back, buckle in, grab your cup of coffee, and you might want to grab some Kleenex because this is going to get pretty heavy duty here. So Russell, why don't you take it away?
All right, Matt, thank you. Yeah, what I thought that I would talk about today is the fact that tomorrow is not guaranteed. And, we all tend to bump along through life. And for most of us, it's routine. It can be even boring, or you just think you're in a rut. And, your next thing you know, I'm 57 years old. I'm like, wow, how'd that happen? It seems like just yesterday I was just getting started in this. But, as I thought about what I would talk about today, I just began to think about that fact that tomorrow is not guaranteed. What tomorrow looks like may be that you're not here and your family is left behind. And as I did that, just very quickly, and I didn't do a scientific study of our files or go back through the files or try and come up with names, but just in a matter of 5 minutes, I thought of 7 people that I know or knew personally. I'm just going to kind of walk through them, and just for privacy persons, I'm just using their first names, and it's not even their first names. I just kind of gave them a name just for context. And these have spanned, say, over a 15-year period. But, the first one is Ron, and I was a bit younger. My wife, Cindy, and I were friends with Ron and his wife, and he's a very active, successful person in the publishing business, and fair-skinned, had melanoma once previously, but avid workout guy, outdoorsman and everything. And 5 years later, it came back, and within a year, he was gone. And, his wife did receive almost $1 million of death benefit, and they didn't have children. So, it really allowed her to maintain her lifestyle. But, she was never quite the same after that. She just, they did things together, didn't have kids, something else to focus on. And so, she just had to kind of find out what her new normal was. And, I think that's very true, that, always have to try and figure out what's tomorrow look like. And so that's the first one. The next one's Tom. Tom and his wife met in elementary school. They weren't married then, of course. That's an attempt at levity on a heavy subject. But they grew up together, got married, had a child, and he developed cancer, which he fought hard over a 2-year period. But at 45, he passed away. The surviving spouse, wife, raised the child, and who has done well now out of college and in the career field. But, that was a case where probably should have had more coverage. So his wife, in fact, said after the fact, wow, I wish we'd had more life insurance. And I was like, boy, that really made me feel bad because, it's a sensitive subject when we're dealing with people that we know, because we have the philosophy of make a client or a friend or both. And you don't want to be a quote unquote pushy advisor with these people that you get close to. But at the same time, I found that very upsetting, after the fact, being the audience for that comment, when we are purveyors of that particular product, life insurance in this case. So, and it's not really that expensive. You can always find a way to address that need, but no one thinks it's going to happen to them until it does. The next person, good friend of mine for quite a long period of time, he had some medical issues as a young man. recovered from that, married again someone he'd known since high school. And they had a nice life together, but at 45, he got cancer and then passed away. And they continued to assist his wife, but she still misses him. Again, never remarried. They had one child. And, that was roughly 12 years ago. Then we had another person who, business owner and 45 years old, actually had a heart attack while hanging out with some friends and passed away on the way to the hospital because we had done planning with him and his wife. She was able to maintain his business and raise their two children. And, she's functioned quite well. But, certainly would have been a lot different if there hadn't been some planning there. He was a very active guy too, so I guess there's a common theme here in all these cases. These are not lazy, just sit around on the couch, out of shape people. These are just normal people like you and me who just had the misfortune of, whatever, whether it's, I guess genes or environment or whatever, then they're not here. Then there was Ted, also a business owner, getting closer to retirement, found out he had cancer. It was kind of a slow evolution. So Ted actually came in with his entire family, wife and children. He was ill, but he explained that Carl and I, my partner, were going to be working with the family and what he wanted to happen when he was no longer here. And you can imagine the emotion of a meeting like that, but it was very meaningful and provided a lot of peace of mind for this person and his family. And that surviving spouse is still a client of the firm more than 10 years later, and those children are fully grown. Then, there's Donnie, who more recently just dropped dead of a stroke. And, that is in process now. And, he was a computer programmer person that never had indicated or exhibited any previous health problem. And then all of a sudden he wasn't here. And then there's Larry, who had been a business owner, and he got cancer and over a period of time passed away. His wife became a client of ours, and she's got some fairly complex trusts and things like that, but we've ultimately continued to work with her over a 10-year period, and there were multiple advisors involved. And then over time, she's moved everything to us as she became comfortable. She's doing quite well and been able to spend time with her kids and grandkids in the same manner of living that she'd been accustomed to. And the last one is probably even more tragic and unsettling. A 14-year-old child who, over a July 4th holiday, he dove off a dock and hit a rock and broke his neck, and he passed away. So through this litany of examples, we've now talked about kids, grandkids, aunts, uncles, brothers, husbands, wives, aunts, uncles. These deaths, impact entire families and entire generations. And most of these people, with the exception of the one I gave with Tom, had done pretty significant planning. And again, with the exception of the child. And then we have one other client who's lost a baby at full term. And, I guess the point is these things just happen. If you don't plan for the unexpected, it's going to be a lot worse and a lot more difficult to address these things. That's really the main takeaway I guess I would like to share today, Matt, is that, life's not all roses and sunshine. Some people have that good fortune to kind of live that life. But for most people, invariably, they're going to be bumps and bruises along the way, sometimes minor, sometimes devastating and tragic. But you can plan for the worst and expect the best. And I think that's what I'd like to be the main takeaway from this. And with that, I'll pause if you have any thoughts. questions that you'd like to share with me or ask me.
I do. I have a couple of quick questions for you. So this is a difficult conversation to have, and the examples that you've given are things that, financial services professionals, especially people who are involved in the life insurance world, deal with on a regular basis. Tell us about the planning process.
Well, the main thing you first have to do is identify if you are the major breadwinner or it's you and your spouse. If you're not there, how is the family unit impacted? And removing the emotional devastation that's obvious. And so what we do is look at your spending, look at if it happens today, vis-a-vis when you would have planned to retire and how much you would have needed to save. And is there college? Is there debt that needs to be paid off? Just what is the fact pattern? And then you step back further and look at what was your original why. Why were you planning? What were your goals? And then based on that, factoring in an estimated rate of return and a rate of inflation that all are comfortable with, we then come up with a capital replacement number. Some call it human life value, but that's only one component because there's also the retirement. You're no longer contributing to your 401k or, your ongoing systematic investment plan because you're not there. So we just factor in all those numbers and then estimate the death of the surviving spouse at age 90 to 95, depending on what's agreed to, and then look at how much capital it would take to fill that void from a death standpoint, from a disability standpoint, from a regular retirement standpoint, and then what happens if someone ends up needing long-term care. Because really, when you think about it, there's die too soon, get hurt or sick along the journey to retirement, or live too long. And those are the human elements of risk management. And of course, people tend to focus on the property and casualty aspects of risk management. We all insure our cars, required to by law, in fact, our homes, jewelry, guns, you name it, baseball cards, but we often don't insure ourselves properly. And clearly, we just had some planning in office planning today, and Carl threw up a statistic that most Americans save like 3.8% of what they make. Over half spend more than they make. So, and over half of Americans don't have wills. So we don't plan for that terrible event to happen to our family. We just tend to let life happen to us. And so, and in my examples, I was really just talking about the impact of having life insurance or not. But the reality of it is, if you don't have a will, the state you reside in is going to determine how your assets are divvied up. And if you have minor children, who's going to be the guardian for them, and who's going to make your healthcare decisions if you're incapacitated, things like that. There's so many things that people just don't like to deal with emotionally, or either, hey, you worked 10 hours at work today, you're just tired, you don't feel like dealing with it. But then when it happens, it's just like getting hit by a tidal wave.
Well, Russell, thank you very much for taking time and walking us through this. You need to have these conversations, everybody. And if you have the conversation with somebody who's had this conversation many times with many people with many different results, it can really put you at ease. Just to speak from experience here, I remember when I signed my first life insurance policy, I remember going home and telling my wife, I had this very interesting sense of calm because I knew that the life insurance wasn't about me. The discussion wasn't about me. It was what was going to happen to my family. And that was a very, very good focus. So, Russell, thank you very much. Would you mind sharing with everybody your contact information? So if they want to have this conversation, they can just reach out to you guys directly?
Absolutely. It's Jacobs, Coolidge and Company. And our phone number is 912-265-2876 at our office. And our website is jacobsandcoolidge.com. And please have these conversations and don't procrastinate. Don't try and be perfect. It's never perfect, but doing something is better than nothing. I would just encourage you, if it's not with us, please do it with a professional who explains things and educates you as to why whatever program they're recommending makes sense.
Wonderful. This is the Planning for Life podcast, and that's exactly what we were talking about today. We were talking about planning for life, the life that will continue way beyond you, and what life can be like if something happens to you. So if you have not subscribed to the podcast, make sure you click that subscribe now button below. And if you do know anybody who needs to hear this and these stories, these examples to help them wake up and realize this is a very, very important part of planning, please make sure you share the podcast with them. For everybody at Jacobs, Coolidge & Company, this is Matt Halloran, and we'll see you on the other side of the mic very soon.
The content is developed from sources believed to be providing accurate information. The information in this material is not intended as tax or legal advice. Please consult legal or tax professionals for specific information regarding your individual situation. The opinions expressed and material provided are for general information and should not be considered a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. Russell C. Jacobs III, Carl B. Coolidge, James Jacobs, and William Schwartz are registered representatives of and offer securities, investment advisory, and financial planning services through MML Investor Services, LLC, member SIPC, Supervisory Office, Jacksonville, Florida. Jacobs, Coolidge & Company, LLC is not a subsidiary or affiliate of MML Investor Services, LLC, or its affiliated companies.